Greetings. I'm Matt Henderson, pastor of First Presbyterian Church in Clarkesville, Georgia. This is our special midweek message, part of our current worship series, The Law, Faith, Radical Grace, and Freedom. We've reached chapter 5 of Galatians, and the passage I've selected today to share provides another insight into Paul's frustration with the Galatians. And as this is part 10 of this summer series, you're probably already well acquainted with the themes of the letter. Paul is writing to correct a problem in the churches he had earlier planted. They have become under the influence of the teachings of some interfering missionaries who have convinced these Gentile converts that in order to become full members of the church, they must first become adherents to the full law of Moses, including being circumcised. And this is not what Paul taught them about salvation, about God's radical grace, which has accomplished everything on our behalf. From the tone of this section, and the whole letter in general, we can see Paul's frustration. He is flabbergasted at the Galatians for their abandonment of the gospel he taught them, the one true gospel, the gospel of grace. But above his frustration at the Galatians, he has some choice words for those who have made a mess of this situation, these advocates of the law, these circumcision salesmen. He lays it all out on the line. Faithfulness to God does not require adherence to the law, and especially not circumcision. So let's turn and let Paul speak on the subject himself. I'm reading now from Galatians chapter 5, beginning with verse 2. Paul says, "Listen, I, Paul, am telling you that if you let yourselves be circumcised, Christ will be of no benefit to you. Once again, I testify to every man who lets himself be circumcised that he is obliged to obey the entire law. You want to be justified by the law? You have cut yourself off from Christ. You have fallen from grace. For through the Spirit by faith, he says, we eagerly wait for the hope of righteousness. For in Christ Jesus, neither circumcision nor uncircumcision counts for anything. The only thing that counts is faith, working for love. You are running well. What has prevented you from obeying the truth? Such persuasion must come from the one who calls you. A little yeast leavens the whole batch of dough. I am confident about you in the Lord that you will not think otherwise. But whoever it is that is confusing you will pay the penalty. But my friends, why am I still being persecuted? If I am still preaching circumcision, in that case, the offense of the cross has been removed. I just wish that those who unsettle you would castrate themselves." Wow. While it was my intent for us to read all of Galatians together, you can see why I pulled this section out for a more informal address. I didn't see, one, how it moved the series significantly forward in a new or deeper direction, how it didn't reveal any new insights or approach to the subject. Plus, there's the whole invitation to castration that might not be a necessary Sunday conversation, as if circumcision wasn't already a delicate enough matter. But let us again be reminded about the nature of God's radical grace, how it depends upon nothing we do, nothing we are, nothing we can or will ever do or become. Our relationship with God is completely based on what God has done for us in Jesus Christ. That is the radical nature of God's grace. Paul is forceful in his dedication. is determination. He says, you can go down this road, it's a dead end. It's not just a little snip you're talking about here. Christ will be of no advantage to you. You will be cut off, severed from Christ. You will have fallen away from grace. From Paul's perspective, there is simply no way to tack circumcision onto the gospel of grace. Do you remember what he said back in chapter 2? It would mean then that Christ died in vain. It's not just that they are being sold something that they don't need. It's that they're being backed into a corner over something that spiritually is adverse. Paul knows that circumcision symbolizes something very important, the identification of the Jewish people, the mark of those who live their lives under the jurisdiction of the Torah. Yet in Christ, the law, the Torah has been fulfilled, the curses nullified, and the benefits, the blessings have been given to us. Paul says circumcision is like signing a contract to a lifelong membership with daily subscriptions, adverse requirements, and unfillable expectations to this exclusive association when you've already been invited as a guest of the owner just to come on in. To Paul, he can't make sense of how they've become bamboozled over this. But let us not think that we don't deserve a similar reminder, maybe a terse letter every now and then. For we are easily tempted to think we are better off served by taking matters into our own hands, when by doing so we're slapping the hands who holds us and this whole world together. Well, on Sunday, we'll look at the end of chapter 5 and Paul's explanation of the fruits of freedom. We'll address what does freedom really look like? And if we are free, then how do we in faith exercise that freedom, and for whom? Until then, the peace of Christ be with you.